so much for stopping by. It's the Financial Freedom Now podcast or podcast. Where you're listening or you're watching. Thank you so much. It's your favorite show and it's your favorite host. My name is Toyin. I'm so appreciative of all the love and all the care and all the liking, subscribing, sharing with your family and friends. And can I please encourage you to continue to do so. And if you're new and you've not listened to me before, have never heard me, then thank you so much for coming. I really can't say thank you. I just want to encourage you to actually watch our previous episodes, watch the previous shows. I'm sure you're gonna get loads of inspiration from that. Now, I am excited to talk about this. You must have seen the title. I'm going to be talking to you and sharing how I got started in property. The reason why I think this is very important, I've always mentioned this, that financial freedom for me was through property. And so I want to share how I got to invest and start investing in property and how you can as well. Now, it doesn't mean, please by no means take anything I've said or I'm saying on here by the gospel truth or it's just my experience and how I've been able to do it. And I just want to sort of share that experience with you as well. Okay, how did I get started in property? So I went into property full-time about 11 years ago, and prior to that I was fortunate enough to be able to work in a job and be able to actually save up, use my savings to buy our first property. I say our first property because my first property was actually as a married woman. So I was married before I actually got on the property ladder at all in the first place. So for me, it wasn't a case that I was able to do this as a youngster. I was still young. I think I'm still young, right? But I did this as a matured adult, and I got into property investment. And so I bought my first property just as a normal 5-star mass, which again we can talk about in the future episodes on how you can actually get onto the property ladder. But I was very passionate. Once I got into property, got our first property, which we lived in as normal, one of the things that I started thinking about doing was getting into property investment. But it wasn't necessarily a dream that I thought was possible because I had loads of other barriers, mindset blockage that had made me think this wasn't necessarily possible for me. It was a journey because I at the time in the UK I'm still I was a migrant which was on the visa. I didn't think I could actually get anything without being a British citizen. I didn't think I could because I felt like I was young. I didn't have the money for it. I was still trying. I wasn't one of those that had like an inheritance being left to me to be able to actually buy property. So for me, there was just a lot of barriers in my mind. Now, to be honest, none of this actually materialized or was real, but they were real in my mind. And so for a long time I didn't think it was possible. I also wasn't in any rich circle, as a word. My circles at the time weren't wealthy. There was no one around me in property. Even buying my first property as a homeowner was not common. I didn't have most people around me at the time doing that, so it was like even just buying my property was a major achievement. So going into property investment was definitely not on the cards. So you might ask, how did I get to do this then? I think although I hadn't actually before I bought my first property, I didn't know much about property, but there was one of my colleagues at work who had mentioned to me, I think he saw me looking at something one day, and then it was just like, okay, I think I was reading an ad in the newspaper, and he was saying to me, and he said to me, oh my goodness, Toyin, I can't believe it. So you don't own your property. You're paying a landlord. You're paying rent. You're actually making someone richer. You're not actually buying yourself. I was shocked in the first place that he thought I had bought a property, and he found it strange that I had not bought a property. But also, not only was I shocked about that, I was also surprised that he thought it's strange, because for me it was like, okay, one, he believes that I can, so obviously that actually improved my confidence, but also it made me think there are probably more people actually living in their own property, despite what my circle was saying to me. So obviously he mentioned to do that then. Not only did he say that, he then mentioned the fact that he was actually into property investment, not as a full-time role like I do now, but he not only owned his home, he was also buying properties around, or trying to. I don't know how we didn't get involved into how well he had done it, but I had the inkling that he had more than one property. So obviously it made me get interested in thinking, well, this is something that I could actually look into. But obviously I wanted to get the first property, so I got the first property, and that was great. But there was something lingering around, just thinking I could actually do this. And it wasn't until when I had my second child. I've always loved watching the Homes Under the Hammer. It's a BBC One UK home show about buying properties and auction and refurbishing and bringing it back on the market. I've always loved it. I watch it every single day, and this was just me binge watching for life. That was what I did for fun. That was the way I relaxed after work. Little did I know I was actually preparing myself for what I will eventually then do full time one day. And so it just really pays into importance to what you actually allow coming and what you envision. Because obviously, whilst I watched it and I didn't think I could do it, I always sort of envisioned, oh wow, if I was the one that bought this, I would have done this. So it's really important what you allow enter you, come into your soul, your mind, and what you feed yourself. It's very important. Don't feed yourself with junk. Even if you cannot actually think about how it's going to be useful, make sure you're guarding your heart, you're guarding your mind very, very carefully. So I eventually, I'd watched it so much that when I had my second daughter, before I had my second daughter, I started thinking of what life would look like if I was more available for the kids. I always wanted to be an intentional parent, but that didn't look like what it was when I had my daughter for about 3 years, and I had to drop her off in nursery. And then I'll go into the story later on. Drop her off in nursery, even though she was not feeling well. I wasn't there regularly, and so all of those things. So that I wasn't happy. But again, I was not financially free to make a decision to just be available for them. So I think by the time when I was pregnant for my second child, I started thinking we need to do more. Then there's more for us to get into, and how do we actually navigate and tap into the more that there was. And I think I started asking the right questions, is what I'll say. I started asking the right questions to myself, asking the right questions, challenging myself in terms of what I thought was achievable, and all of those questions, one day just culminated into one answer. So fortunately enough, because of the way we bought the first property, we had done sort of certain things. We had body rundown. Again, I'm not a shiny shoes person, so even the first property, we had looked to buy something that was below market value. Well, in our terms at the time, looking back, it wasn't really below market value, but that's what I thought it was at the time. It was not the most expensive house in the area, so I thought, oh yeah, that means we're doing something right. And so we bought the property, and we had obviously it had increased in value over the 3 years that we owned it. So we were fortunate enough to be able to move to another place with our savings. And all of again, at this time, we had become more comfortable with properties, such that I definitely was looking for something I could add value to. And so the next property we bought, which was our home, we actually added value to the property. We did it up. It was lovely. We did it to our taste. I had family and friends come for the home, for the housewarming. It was lovely. But then I think it made me start thinking, if I can do this for myself, and I'm not actually being tight on the budget, I was buying things that I loved, whether not necessarily financially viable, then surely I could do this as a business. But I didn't think too much of it, because again, I was pregnant, like I said. Until one day, I think we had the agent that sold the property to us come around and say, well, I know we sold this property to you a while back. We know we've seen you've been doing lots of work to it. Would you be interested in coming to give you a valuation of what the property is worth? And they did come in. He told us what it was worth. And I literally just did a look around to Toby. I was like, what? So this is what, we've been watching on Homes Under the Hammer, so it's real. And there and then I decided that, this is something I could venture into. Now, although this was like my first venture into buying the first property and getting into property investment, looking back now, I've always desired this as a child. I went to my childhood home I think a few years back, about 3 years back, and I actually went into my room, which exactly still the same way, because this is my family home. My parents still own the property, and I went into my room and looked at my wardrobe, and literally on my wardrobe was pictures of loads of big properties. Now this was back in Nigeria, so I grew up in Nigeria, and this was property. This house is back in Nigeria, and I had pictures of properties abroad, so in the UK, in the US, and I literally would cut them out of magazines and put them on my wardrobe, and I was like, what? This, even though I was very young and I didn't know, this was also the power of vision board, right? And I actually had envisioned all of these things prior to that time, but I didn't realize. I also remember when my parents were actually building this home back in Nigeria, I was very involved. I used to be called the project manager of the site, because I always go around what the bricklayers were doing and trying to tell them, this, you should do this. I was obviously very a child. I was about 10 years old at the time, but I was very interested and invested in what they were doing. So I think for me, the love for property has always been, but I just didn't have and know the expression of how that's going to work, how it's going to transpire. And so I think things like that really helps in terms of envisioning. So when opportunities come, so now, I mean, when Alpesh, yeah, this name of the guy that I mentioned, oh, you could get, you can buy properties. It literally fell on very fertile ground, because I'd been sowing, I'd been investing in myself in some way without realizing that this is what exactly I wanted to do. And so it was just a case of, it was the right time. So and this is also important to speak up. Just because, I mean, I could have literally switched off my, I don't know what conversation we were having that made me talk about property, and he knew that I wasn't. Just picking up at that point in time and having Halpesh tell me, oh, you know, you can buy property. I'm surprised, I didn't think you were property. Made me then think, oh my goodness, I've got the confidence. There was nothing else different. And the moment he mentioned that was the catalyst I needed to actually go and do this, because everything else began to fall into place at that point in time. So it was not as though I had the money to buy the first property that was at home, but it wasn't also because it was just lack of knowledge, really. And so that's how we got the first property. And then eventually, once the property got revalued, we thought, oh yeah, we had added value. I told Toby, I said, you know what, that's it. This is the answer I've been looking for. I feel stuck at my job. I love the job, but I want to be an intentional parent. I want to be able to achieve financial freedom. I don't want us to keep living from living paycheck to paycheck. I wanted more. And I was like, you know what? If you're gonna back me up, I'm stepping out of my job, and I will do this full time. I'll give myself, I think at the time it was a year or so, to make sure this works. If it doesn't work, I'll go back to my work. Well, I have not gone back, and because we've tried to make it work. It's been challenging. There have been issues, and there are currently even issues currently as I speak, but we move. We continue to work hard. We continue to do what we can to make sure this works out. Yeah, that's how I got into property investment. It's been a lovely journey. I'm very, very thankful to God every single day that I was able to find this path, and I continue to find my path, because property has really opened a lot of doors for me. I mean, being able to speak to you today, be on this podcast, this podcast, you're watching me or listening to me, it's just because of what property has been able to afford me. And now, I've always been a talkative, I've always loved talking, but it's just, what do I talk about? But being able to achieve my own financial freedom now has helped me then be able to actually do the same. And one of my life values, I always say, and quite high on my priorities, is being able to help others achieve financial freedom, so that they can do the things that they've been called to do. They can achieve their own purpose and make the world a better place. So it's almost like the circle we're doing. I'm doing my bit to help you, so you can do your bit, and whatever bit you're doing and all of the bits you guys are doing is going to come back to help me as well. So it's not, you're not, when I help you, I'm not just helping you, I'm also helping myself. So property has been my avenue, one of my asset classes to building wealth, and I continue to do so, and I want you to do so as well. Okay guys, thank you so much for listening to me and watching me. It's been a fantastic session once again. I'd encourage you to please like, subscribe, send your lovely notes, comments. I'd love to see what you think, and if you're in property, let me know. how you got into property as well. If there's any way we can help you, I'm more than happy. You can see our contact details are somewhere around wherever you're listening to me. Please get in touch. I have loads of free training resources if you're looking to get into property, that I can actually help you. So please get in touch, and I'd love to hear from you. All right then, take care.